part of my personal the floor to Alexander Kubrakov, Deputy Prime Minister for Restoration, Minister for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development. I know that he should be online with us, but later. Not now, okay. Olena Alexeyevna, I'm sorry, but you will be the first one to give welcome words. Olena Shulak, Chairman of the Committee on the Organization of State Power, Local Self-Government, Regional Development and Urban Planning. I invite you to the scene. Please take your seat. You may sit in the center. Good afternoon. I thought that I will have much more people here, but the format has changed a little bit. Dear colleagues, I'm very happy to welcome you all. I am sure that our today's meeting will become one more event which bring us closer to transparent and quick system of recovery and a rebuild of our country. You know that any recovery and reconstruction processes, in our understanding, are not implementable without the digitalized tools which are already developed by our communities and are used by them. I will start from the following. 1 year ago, on the 23rd of February, Verkhovna Rada has adopted a law, and in 1 year it brought tangible results. We already have the register of damaged and destroyed property. This is the only register with the verified information. It will become a basis for future reparations, which will be claimed by Ukraine later. We are very grateful to all those who are working with that register. As of today, this register is a basis for obtaining the compensation for damaged and destroyed properties. We are grateful to all the communities and the local self-government authorities and the commissions created under them, which with the support of many authorities allowed to pay out the compensations for many families for their destroyed and damaged properties. The second issue I'd like to mention today, we came much closer to the issues which are related to the reconstruction itself. And now there are a lot of processes, and 151 communities are already the participants of the comprehensive recovery programs. 14 oblasts have joined these programs as well, and I'm sure that without a high quality planning, it is not possible to start a recovery process in our country. Also, we have quite an interesting digital story. It is broadly discussed by many partners. This is our digital system dream, and today at the basis of the Ministry of Regional Development and Infrastructure, we develop the legislation for the dream system to make it not a voluntary system, but to make it a mandatory one for the communities which would like to attract funds and who are working with the donors. A lot of attention is paid to DREAM, so it should be used by different participants, and it extracts data from different other systems, and also it is necessary for future development and planning. This system, which we are going to discuss today, it is also very crucial for us because it will allow us not just to collect data from different systems, it will allow us to conduct analysis and to plan systems of regional development and to establish indicators which then will be used for assessment. We understand that the system which is now operational in the EU is also based at some benchmarks, development benchmarks, and I'm sure that our system in combination with other digital tools we have will give us more opportunities comparing to the systems which are already used by the EU members. Let's start the discussion. I think Deputy Prime Minister for Restoration, Minister for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development is ready to join us. Also, I see Alan in the hall. Alan, please join the panel. Alan Pan Christensen, head of the EU Anti-Corruption Initiative in Ukraine. And also, I would like to invite Remy Duflo, Deputy Head of a delegation EU to Ukraine, if he is with us. Yes, he is with us. Please join the panel. And I'd like to connect Mr. Kobrakov, and let's start our discussion. Yes, we have Alexander online. Just a second. We have to make technical arrangements to see him on the screen. Well, and Alexina, I'm very sorry for this pause, but we are all finally gathered. Alexander, do you hear us? Yes, I hear you well. Good afternoon. Do you hear us well? Yes, we hear you well. And we'd like to listen to a welcome address, and after that we will proceed to the discussion. Good morning, everyone, colleagues, the representatives of different bodies of state power, local government authorities, and regional authorities. Opening this event, I would like to express my gratitude to the international partners for all their support they provide in these crucial and difficult times in our country. Lack of digitalizations in regions, a lot of reports in paper-based form, which are submitted to the public authorities of different level, and duplication of information caused lack of specific data or difficulties in accessing such data, and clear understanding of local programs and bottlenecks and strengths of economic side for the regions will allow speedy recovery of our country and efficient utilization of financial resources. So we believe that data-based decision-making should become the basis for decision-making. And it is interesting to look what takes place in different communities, what they had before the full-scale invasion, before the 24th of February, and what happens there during the war. What is their economic trends, what fields, areas are developing, which are not, what happens with the population, what is the load on social infrastructure, considering the number of population. We have some communities with increased number of population, in some we have the decreased number of population, etc., etc. I hope that all these issues and all these elements will be covered by respective system. Last year, the ministry started working on a very powerful tool of the implementation of policy of regional development, and I'm sure that all these dimensions and area which I just covered, they will be included into the system, which will help us to provide the visualized data and will allow us to have a comparison of data from different regions, and that will facilitate decision making in different communities, because we will be much better aware of what is happening where in which communities and what are the needs of specific communities, because there may be different situations. So these type of systems is used already in different European countries, and updated indicators in the system will be synchronized with the European ones, which will allow to get access to the best practices and financing programs in the EU. Thank you all for your attention. I would like to invite you to strengthen our cooperation, which will help our country to develop more smoothly. Thank you, Alexander. I now would like to give floor to Olena Shuliak. I'm sorry for interrupting you, first of all, but I wanted to. Yeah, so A alert is over finally. That's a great news. Elena, oh, back to you. Well, even despite we have the war in the country, our communities continue moving along the EU integration process and recovery process. They are oriented at recovery. Even despite the 1st January of 2025, we will get to the next phase of urban planning reform. I would like to remind that from the 1st of January, all the communities would need to have spatial planning
recording in
documents.
Progress.
Thank you. We cannot influence that. So from the 1st of January, we will need to have new spatial plans, and for them, the information should be collected. There is a practice when we have that communities collect information for the recovery and for spatial planning documents. And I believe that this system, which is going to be presented today, will help communities to collect necessary information. Also, I'd like to remind you that ministries are now actively working on rearranging the infrastructure of spatial planning because they have revealed a number of documents which are not in line with the current requirements. And as Mr. Vice Minister said, number of documents are now in paper-based forms and maybe obsolete, which are not necessary. They will have to actually change them. Also, the government is going to adopt a new strategy of regional development of our country, and that will be the compilation of all these important issues which will be necessary for them, and this system will complement them. Also, I'd like to express my gratitude to all our international partners who help us to introduce progressive and modern solutions which help us to can transform our country into a developed country. Thank you for your words. I have only one question because maybe you will leave us now. As to the MP's impression, who used to like subventions and our allocations, so the regional communities are taking money, taking power. What do you think about that? I am sure that digitalization is the future. Everything what can be digitalized should be digitalized. We now see digitalization of cultural heritage registers, also the registers of administrative units and the buildings. So I believe that the digital state is something inevitable for our country, and it will be only positive. I hope that all other MPs will share your opinion and will support all the initiatives. Thank you very much for your speech. Well, Euro integration was mentioned already 4 times today, and Deputy Prime Minister, and I would like to give the floor to Remy Duflo, the Deputy Head of the delegation of the EU to Ukraine. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I will speak English.
Just wanted to say a few messages since today we present this system. And one idea that was just discussed, the fact that the GIS is a digital tool, should not make us forget about the importance of procedures to ensure that these tools actually bring the transparency to the complex reconstruction process in a way that is positive for the citizens and the state at the same time. So, I think reconstruction and starting with it, recovery, alongside with, implementing key reforms, this is one of the major issues on Ukraine's path towards the European Union. The capacity of doing both at the same time, managing both, is a very important and very challenging task. So, you know, the EU has been trying to support recovery and to the start of reconstruction since basically since the beginning of the full-scale invasion in February 2022. We had ad hoc projects, you know, building shelters, rebuilding schools, buying buses that had been destroyed by the Russian forces for children, and etc., etc. But now we are including, in the context of the Ukraine facility, this 50 billion facility that was approved about 1 week ago. We are now, of course, proceeding towards a much larger effort that we are going to support in both through direct budget support, but also through encouraging investment. And this is where transparency and accountability is, I would say, even more important, because we want also to reconstruction to become of interest to private investors. So this is accountability, transparency, more generally the principles of fiscal discipline, strategic resource allocation, operational efficiency. These are all words that the ministry knows extremely well, and we are really encouraging them to develop the procedures that should make these principles a reality. Again, GIS is a tool, but without the principles, it will not bring the effect that we are all expecting from it. So regarding principles and procedures, let me recall what we had in the Commission's report of November last year when it comes to Chapter 22, which is the one on regional policy, and I quote, that Ukraine should strengthen the coordination framework within regional policy to ensure systemic and inclusive engagement of regional and local shareholders, stakeholders, to ensure a coordinating role for the Ministry of Restoration and an adequate regional angle for the Agency of Restoration. And, well, end of quote, but you see that already this figures very, very prominently in the concerns and the intention very high on the, I would say, agenda of the European Commission and more generally the European Union, since member states as well are following very closely what's happening here when it comes to recovery and reconstruction. So let me just conclude now that we will continue to encourage the ministry to work in that spirit in the framework of state regional policy. And at the request of the ministry itself, by the way, we encourage the EU Anti-Corruption Initiative to also provide capacity building to the state fund for regional development. The EU Anti-Corruption Initiative is now in its third phase already, and we are very happy about it. We will continue to accompany the Ministry of Restoration as well as the agency and the diversity of pilot local and regional authorities to implement anti-corruption work in connection with reconstruction. And based on the pilot experiments, we will of course duplicate these anti-corruption initiatives at various levels of governance. The deepening of this cooperation with the ministry, and I think we will see soon the signing of an important memorandum of understanding in that spirit, this deepening of our collaboration clearly comes as a recognition of all the efforts deployed by Minister Kubrakov and his team in fighting corruption risks and promoting accountability in the context of reconstruction. So we are glad that this initiative takes place. GIS is a tool again, and what I want to add is a first step. So we're now looking forward towards the next ones. Thank you.
Дякую, Ремі.
Thank you, Remy. Indeed, the efforts of the EU Anti-Corruption Initiative cannot be overestimated, because with the leadership and with the ongoing support of this long process of resilience and change and transformation in the government and in the ministry, and the transformation of the recovery policy, thanks, to the personal Alan's position. So this project is constantly supported, and I believe that Remy can hear the compliment from me that the consistency of the work of the EU Anti-Corruption Initiative made this presentation possible too. So Alan, the floor is yours, the chair of the Anti-Corruption Initiative of EU in Ukraine.
Thank you, Alexander. Thanks for the kind words. Welcome to all of you. I would like to start by thanking the ministry for taking the initiative to this event today that we are co-hosting. I think it's important to give proper attention to these digital tools that will be that are now being developed and that will be key for Ukraine's reconstruction and development. At the EUACI, we are very happy with the cooperation we have developed with the ministry. I think from the very beginning, more than a year ago, we felt that there was a very big understanding of working with the issues of transparency, integrity, accountability, and we can feel that the leadership of the ministry is very keen on pursuing these values. I think that's extremely important with the agenda the ministry has. So the main purpose of our support to the ministry is to assist the ministry in establishing the framework for doing reconstruction with respect for these values I mentioned before: transparency, integrity, accountability. And we do that by providing legal expertise. We have what we call the Integrity Support Group with a few experts that are somehow embedded within the ministry, helping with getting all the legal framework in place. And the other tool we are using is the digital tool. We have been supporting the development of this national GIS from the very beginning. And when we as an anti-corruption program engage in a project like this GIS development, it's because we are sure that these digital tools are probably the best way, are very often the best way to close some gaps for corruption. They create transparency, accountability. They provide access to information that was not before easily accessible for civil society, for media. It's also an important tool for their role as being watchdogs, keeping an eye on the authorities. So from an anti-corruption perspective, these tools are actually extremely important. And then, of course, they also serve many other important functions, including, I mean, it's a great planning tool and decision-making tool for the ministry to have. The special feature with these GIS tools is then that it's digital maps. It's very easy to read and to understand, and it makes it extremely useful for ordinary Ukrainians to follow developments using these digital maps. So the GIS that is being presented today will include data from the regions, from the municipalities, later on from Romadas, about socioeconomic developments, budgets, demographics, and so on. And the plan is to connect it with the DREAM ecosystem, so that it not only covers like regional socioeconomic data, but also data about damaged buildings and objects that needs to be reconstructed. And I think this combination is quite unique, and it includes a lot of potential for further development. What we will see today is the first version of the system, and there are many possibilities for its expansion. We have been working together with other donors in this project as well, and we hope that other donors will also help us as we go along with the next stages of the project. Let me also thank Christina Zelinska and her team for developing the GIS platform. I think, I mean, we have been working with you and your team from the very beginning of this project when it was only on paper, and now it's there, and we are really impressed by the work that you have been doing. We are now, as Remy mentioned, starting a new phase of the program for 3 years, and the Ministry of Recovery will be one of our core partners, and it also gives us now the possibility to work with more long-term projects and ideas and investments, and certainly the whole issue of these digital platforms will continue to be on top of the list of activities we'll be doing with the ministry. We are very pleased to be able to sign a memorandum of understanding today with the ministry that will be the basis for our future cooperation. So with these words, and thanks for your attention, I will stop here and give the floor back to you, Alexander.
Yes, Alan. Don't give the floor back so quickly, because I'll give the floor back to you again, and also to the ministry representatives, to make sure that you can officially sign the memorandum on cooperation between the EU initiative and the ministry on basically this project and other projects to come. So basically, to put this on paper with your signatures. And I would like to invite Alexandra Azarkhina, the Deputy Minister, basically to the signing procedure. And we have all the necessary documents prepared for that.
Насправді все мало би бути в цифровому форматі, але так як
Everything should have been in the digital format, but GIS is just being launched, so we will have signatures in ink.
I think it will be next time. And it's, you can see I was somehow trying to find the right page here. It's quite long memorandum we have, because we need to include all the different activities that we are going to do together. So now I put my signature here on top of Mr. Krupakov's. Here you are. Thank you.
У нас залишається роль, думаю, аплодисментів.
So I guess now is the time for applause. So now I would like Alexandra to stay here with us, because she will be taking the floor next. So please, Alexandra, stay with us. And Remy Duflo, the Deputy Head of the EU in Ukraine, and also Alan, the chair of the Unified Geoinformation Initiative. So thank you, and please stay with us, and please get involved in the discussion. And now I give the floor to Alexandra. So let me make just a little bit of a distance between us. Yes, you can feel yourself at home here. So it's very important and a very happy event today, and I'm glad that we managed to avoid going down to the shelter, because we all realize that, some people are lucky, some are not, under the circumstances. So our work on the reform of the public regional policy becomes extremely important, because if we do not adapt all the state instruments to react to the different circumstances that we have, depending on, the distance to the front line and how often the Russians attack, the infrastructure in Ukraine. So obviously the question of regional policy is connected not with some theoretical things, it's connected with, day-to-day life. And just the one thing that I would, briefly disagree with the colleagues from the EU representation. So the geoinformation system that we are presenting today is not the first step. And we understand that in order to reform the regional policy sector is to do this in a systemic way and to do it simultaneously. Otherwise, the wheels in this clock would not be moving in synchrony. So the first step was to approve the state strategy of the regional development. And a lot of people who are present here today, here and online, were directly involved into 7 working groups that helped to basically update the national regional development strategy until 2027. And without this first step, it would have been really difficult to present the GIS system for monitoring the strategy itself. So now you will see that in more detail in Christina's presentation. So we will be basically telling not about the theoretical things, but there is a specific document that went through a number of circles or rounds of discussion and waits for its government approval. And it was not easy to adapt this document to make sure that the goals of the national or regional policy in the way they were formulated before traditionally, so to make sure that they basically uh, converted into the digital system with the zeros and ones logics with the possibility for performance on indicator-based performance measurement. And this is a great event for us. When we talk about launching the systems in a very simplified way, we need this for 2 things. First of all, without this digital tool, we wouldn't achieve the tasks that basically we have in view of the euro integration, which is the geoanalysis of the efficiency of the regional policy. And now when we're talking, for example, I see the communication between the ministry and the region. So unfortunately, this is more like a formal process. Of course, there are documents adopted. There's an exchange of correspondence, and I'm happy to read all those emails and reports. But we understand all too well that even the most thorough report about the implementation of a regional strategy, so it's not connected with the really important processes that deal with the finances. So in fact, we're saying that today's work is needed to make sure that within the large reform of the public investment in Ukraine, which is being guided by the Ministry of Finance and supported by the Ministry for Economy and our ministry. So we have to make sure that we don't lose this element of connection with the national level. So now we're trying to balance and to keep order in all the processes in the country, and we try to see how to make sure that this or that initiative receives public or even international funding. Nevertheless, we need to we're continuing the same regime, so there will be these announcements. There are no launches, there are no missile launches. If any launches are, then we'll go down to the shelter. I'm sorry, Alexandra, just to make sure you understand. Yes, let us hear to this announcement till the end.
Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the fire location stairs near the 1 hour's landing on the ground floor. Please use the another 1 hour 20 on each floor. Then follow printed shelter sites. Увага! У Києві оголошена повітряна тривога. Наполегливо рекомендуємо спуститися до укриття. Укриття знаходиться на мінус другому поверсі нашого підземного паркінгу. Щоб потрапити до укриття, необхідно спуститись спочатку в лобі готелю на перший поверх. Використовуйте, будь ласка, евакуаційні сходи біля 20-го номера на кожному поверсі. На першому поверсі слідуйте за друкованими вказівниками, які далі підкажуть шлях до підземного укриття.
Маленький сайт комент.
So a little bit of a side comment.
Не так просто.
No, it's not that easy, you know. There are still more announcements.
On the second floor of our underground parking area. To get to the shelter, first you need to go down to hotel lobby on the ground floor. Please use the fire evacuation stairs near the room number 20 on each floor. Then follow printed shelter signs. Увага! У Києві оголошена повітряна тривога. Наполегливо рекомендуємо спуститися до укриття. Укриття знаходиться на мінус другому поверсі нашого підземного паркінгу. Щоб потрапити до укриття, необхідно спуститись спочатку в лобі готелю на перший поверх. Використовуйте, будь ласка, евакуаційні сходи біля 20-го номера на кожному поверсі. На першому поверсі слідуйте за друкованими вказівниками, які далі підкажуть шлях до підземного укриття.
Ми якраз з паном Олександром не одну дискусію мали.
So me and Alexander, we had more than one discussion about the true tools of the regional policy in Ukraine, and having different systems of anti-air defenses is the most efficient instrument for regional development than anything that's accessible in our country. And indeed, those who live in Kyiv and around Kyiv are very lucky, but, there are, the details. And we're talking about the national, yes, systems, because the regions cannot buy the anti-air system themselves. If they could, they would have. Yeah, so maybe the international tool for regional development, right? So going back to the logic of this reform, so if we explain this very simple terms, so the Ministry of Finance is responsible for identifying what is the basket of the public expenditure in order to sustain the development of the country as a whole. And the Ministry of Finance role is basically to show where we want to move to make sure that the country's economy is growing, the GDP is growing, etc. And our key work as the ministry that combines the tasks associated with the local government development, regional policy, and a huge package of direct infrastructure investment. So basically, to use this opportunity to impact the priorities of the infrastructure of the investment with the priorities of regional development. And now we're saying that this could be addressed through the strategic documents. For example, I just came here after meeting with the World Bank, where we were discussing the transfer strategy that has to be developed to, of course, implement the Ukraine facility, but it's also needed for Ukraine to understand just what needs to be recovered and how. Is the transfer strategy the question of regional development? Right, of course it is, but the task of the regional system that we have is not just to identify the overall national priorities. This is basically why we have the national regional development policy that includes the sectoral priorities. Our task is to preserve the approach that helps to back up on the policy documents of the municipal and regional level. So when we talk about the unique opportunity that GIS is opening for us, it's not simply the monitoring of what's really happening. It's not only the possibility to finally connect something that's in the strategy with the real investment on the local and regional levels. This is our chance to see how this or that investment impacted in this or that socioeconomic development indicator. And today in the presentation of the system, you will see in what way we can trace the strategy in various its components and also the indicators of the socioeconomic development. Why do we need that? So basically, we really want to move to this tool when we coordinate the public regional policy. Alexander Kuprov emphasized that. So we need to understand the reality of what's happening at the local and regional level to make sure that we do this in the most reasonable, most efficient way, and to use the modest resources that the country has. Because indeed, GIS is a tool, of course, but this is the tool that helps us to speak about the accountability, transparency, and also the reasonability of decisions. And I believe that thanks to the events that we're trying to implement, we don't only trace the investment, we not only stand for the interests of the communities and the regions in the prioritization, the public level, we will have the chance to fight the problem of incomplete construction. And you know all too well how we had this national policy implemented in Ukraine very often, that was directly associated with a specific political cycle. So after the political cycle is over, the construction is incomplete. So basically, they lose any sort of interest. So it's very important for us that every investment which is made on the local or regional level is connected with the policy document that was developed by the community.
щоб ці документи не були лише власністю
It is also
органу.
very important to these documents to be not the documents for the authorities only, but for the communities. To do that, we will insist on maximum inclusivity of all processes at the level of communities. And the last thought I'd like to mention, we should think about the importance of all tools. Yesterday, we had a very interesting discussion on how we are going to develop a plan, action plan to the strategy of regional development. Our ambition for the plan is to include into this plan the indicators related to investments. Further, to introduce a GIS there to monitor efficiency of regional policies. It will be connected with the DREAM system, and it is connected through the stage, which is implemented through capital investments of specific ideas. When we talk about coordination role of the ministry, about commissions, all this has no sense if we don't understand where finance are directed and how they are utilized. In our team, we believe that it will work when we will make connections between all these elements, not just to support the projects at community levels, but to support the projects which are in framework documents or in respective frameworks, and monitoring should be implemented through the actions which are implemented to achieve the goals which were agreed. I'm so happy this event take place today, and I'm so happy that we have reached the first pilot testing. I hope that in May we will be able to run a full pilot, and then from the beginning of the next year, we are going to use it finally. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Alexandra. Alexandra, you have demonstrated how the position and the perception of the system evolved, because at the first stage we saw anti-corruption impact when we saw changes in numbers and in project scale due to change of political cycles. Now we see it as a comprehensive tool which will be the basis for the regional strategy. And the state will have it to have a better understanding on how regions can be developed, and not just to have it as a statistical tool, but all these anti-corruption statistical components, they are all very important. Thank you. Yes, I have a very brief comment of my gratefulness to Christine, Alexandra, because that I heritage the project, but I'm very happy actually and lucky because we are talking about such project for last 10, 15 years, and I'm really very lucky because if with Dream it was our baby, so to say. We developed it from the very beginning in cooperation with civil society and international partners. But now we have a very good example of continuity. And this is an example that we can continue transforming best efforts of previous companies. And yes, cheese systems with UACHI support at local levels were very successful in the past, and now we're moving to the national level. So it came from the local projects to the broader ones, and it's much more pleasant to me as one of those who supports decentralization. Thank you very much for your words, and now we are going to have a presentation of the test version of the GIS of the regional development, and we have Christina. This is her moment, but we are ready to support Christina, so she will make everything possible. So this system is going to work in live, and let's give a round of applause to her so she will relax and present us the system. Thank you all to be here. For me, this project is a part of my life and a part of life of my team's members. I'm very grateful to the ministry, to the EU anti-corruption initiative for making it possible. Today, we will demonstrate you the example of what was have been discussed for last 10 or 15 years in our environment. We will demonstrate you a test product, a test version, and it's public system only. You have to understand that the product has an administrative part, and this administrative part will be a profile which will be a profile for all subjects for Ministry of Infrastructure and Agency for Recovery and local subjects. So all those who exist and work today, and according to which we develop actually this system. At the very beginning, at the first page, you see a very nice picture of Maria Primachenko, Ukrainian artist. This picture is actually a representation of cohesion, and we thought a lot what can represent the regional policy. It's actually a cohesion. Cohesion is what is an underlying element of our country. This is a philosophy of united people around a common goal to live in a better country. If we scroll down, you will see basic blocks, which will be the functionalities of the SIMI. Till the 31st of May, we developed the first version of the system, but of course, in the future, the functionality will be developed further. It's scaling and improvement. Major functionality is the collection of data from different sources. We first take information from state registries, which are maintained by state bodies and state enterprises, which information is verified and is checked against its correctness and which is checked by respective responsible persons. So later on at the map, you will have a map of data which will be distributed by thematical layers and which will be represented textually and visually in diagrams. So it will be possible to see the information not in tables, not in spreadsheets. It will be possible to see them in index formats on the map, and it will be possible to compare it from territory to territory, and we will show how it looks like in practice. Another important functionality element is a transformation of the approach from the strategic planning investments in paper-based form when we talk about everything working properly into digital tools for strategic planning, which is defined by the law on the basics of regional development policy. Since we have planning at the state, regional, and local levels where strategies are developed, action plans are developed, different budgetary programs are developed. Well, sorry, colleagues will now switch on the demonstration back and we will see the visual representation again. Okay, so for many years in Ukraine, all the strategies, action plans, budgetary programs, all of them were just sets of different documents saved in different places. And these strategies are like 200-300 pages documents full of text, and it is difficult to establish connections between them. But to develop the policy where it should go, actually, to the people, we have to track it. So we have analyzed a lot of local strategies, all regional strategies. So there are also state strategies of regional development. It is operational, actually, and we have identified a basic framework of the structure of this document, and it helped us to split documents into parts in order to establish connections and interconnections between them. So every document has an analytical part. In the future, this analytical part will be created in the electronic cabinet of regional development when the community before developing the strategic document will not need to approach different information holders, and thanks to electronic interaction, they will be able to have it in one place and visually look at this information and to read the context, what was the situation 3 years ago and what will be the situation in 2-3 years ago. After we will have all the information collected and model the possible outcomes. So it will be possible to choose different scenarios of socioeconomic development, and the map will change accordingly, if I would speak very simple words. So it is very useful and transformation oriented, so it will help the territories and communities to develop. Other parts, actually challenges, problems, which we have to tackle in our development. These are strategic goals, the composition of the goals. We will talk about them in more details. Well, a red alert is over. Congratulations, Christina, again. Now we are going to have an announcement, so you will have to make a pause. Well, okay, and now this project of state regional development strategy was digitalized, and we have structured it according to the digital format. So this document is our key basic document, our foundation, which would be the basis for alignment to for other documents at other levels for regional planning. You also see other functional blocks in the system, which will be implemented into the productive life based till the end of May, and publicly they will be presented at the beginning of summer. This is the monitoring regional development. This is there are a few types of them: monitoring of development, indicator based, how do they change ecology, population, construction after the investments actually came. Yeah, sorry, I've warned you.
All clear. Please be very attentive, and in case of another air raid siren, it is recommended to go back to the shelter. Stay safe. Відбій повітряної тривоги. Просимо уважно слідкувати за ситуацією та у разі чергової повітряної тривоги повернутися до укриття. Бережіть себе.
Продовжуємо. І далі є
Let's
інші.
continue. And further on, we have other functional blocks which will be implemented in version number 2. We are actually open to cooperation with other new partners because this is a very difficult and comprehensive system. It relates to a comprehensive reform. It will cover many subjects: local self-governing authorities, communities, local administrations. It will be an example at the EU market in few years, and we really invite you to cooperate with us and to invest into it. Well, as to the efficiency of expenditures, this is actually a functionality which will be implemented into the system through the indicators of economical developments on the basis of actually projects which were submitted for the commission. These are the indicators, their collection and comparison among different communities against the set indicators, and it is very important tool for possible investment opportunities. We have faced a problem that our Igor, the head of State Statistics Service, he's going to talk about the introduction of Institute of Local Statistics, because it's very important. We have faced, when developing the system, the situation that local data is a basic and very important, crucially important information for the aggregation to use it at other higher levels. So these data would be used to calculate different indices for planning at a different state and regional level. And this data is necessary for communities at the first place. Now communities have only minimized sets of data, minimal sets of data, and it's not enough of such data from them. Let's go lower, let's scroll down. You see an interactive dashboard on the map, the status of approved strategic documents by percentage. You see how many communities have developed respective documents. I now offer to show you how the first version of the digitalized digital strategy looks like. This is not the document which is approved by the government, but it's now being considered by the government still. So the state strategy is divided into 6 blocks. The main information on the document, which will be contained in any document, who is the developer of the document, what is the document about. Every document will have a registration number in the system, so it will be possible to search for it faster. What are the tasks of the document? In our case, this is a state-level document and grounds for adoption of the document. And this span of this time span of this document, let's scroll down. The second part are trends and main challenges which Ukraine faced, specifically now and today after the full-scale invasion. Please show here we have all names, so they are structured in a way so it is possible to see all the details. At the regional and local level, we will offer an approach to the definition of challenges on the basis of collected information. Then we have the next part, strategic and operative goals for regional development. We can choose, for example, one of the strategic goals, and you can see its decomposition on operative goals and tasks and so on and so on. So this is how the document is going to look like. Now you see the decomposition of the document into table form, but for further monitoring, it means that we have structured all the elements of the paper-based documents, which contains more than 200 pages, and established links between problems, tasks, and specific solutions till the very end. So the monitoring is going to start from the change of the status of this project. For example, implementation stage or commissioning, if it's, for example, construction of some kindergarten or nuclear power station. So then the project will change, will have change in indicators. Money from the budget received, number of population increased, etc., issues related to the ecological situation. So, well, it will be possible to see how the strategic documents, not in a declarative way, but in a practical way, change our lives. So now let's move to a more interactive part. This is an interactive map where we collected basic set of information which we could collect at this stage. In fact, so we have integrated the information from some state resources, and also we have collected and imported into the system data which were collected by the Ministry of Infrastructure within the framework of cooperation with other projects of cooperation. So you see the indicators and the spans from minimum to maximum data, and you can already compare different communities if you have to, for example, in terms of their income or expenditures. We have also integrated the data from the single unified register of legal entities with the categorization of legal entities. Also, it is possible to see the status, for example, of registration of legal entities who are actually one of the main taxpayers, and this information could be one of the important pieces to take decisions. Next layer on socioeconomic indicators. So these data were collected by the way of surveying territorial communities. So here we have a very interesting map on demographic data, on access to local infrastructure, on access to education, to healthcare, etc. We have also added an opportunity to choose a specific territorial community and to look at the card of such a community till end of May. We will try to launch the profile of every community with the analytics, which will be able to collect thanks to this integration and present it in different formats.
So now let's move to another layer. So here, you see that the system integrates a number of data that cannot be integrated when it comes to, and which cannot be disclosed publicly. So when we're talking about the damages and destructions, this is the layer of data that will be shown only to the authorized users, but now we displayed a number of data that was collected by the UNDP project Russia Will Pay, and the data was received, through the digitalization of the data of the destroyed objects, and which was done through the drone imaging and the satellite imaging. So the authorized users in the system, this is sensitive information, and they will be able to compare a number of layers of data about the destructions. And this will be compared with the data through the register for the destroyed property, and also to understand the share of the object that were not included into the registry, and to launch the necessary processes. And basically, we have to be more objective in evaluating the scale of damages and destruction in the given community. Also, we received the data from the Kyiv School of Economics, and they carried out certain demographic research on the needs of the population inside specific communities. So this is relevant information for the management decisions, because based on this data and this information, to uh, and to use it to focus the public and private investment, and also the technical assistance projects investment is very important. And also, we have a layer about the demographic changes, and here you can see how the population was changing before the start of the war, before the start of 2022, and all the way until now. And let's stop at the last layer. So it's very important to mention that now the draft national regional development strategy, so it identifies the first functional status of the territories, so the recovery territory. So these are the territories where the funding will be focused primarily for the recovery, and there is a set of scenarios developed by the Ministry for Infrastructure to identify the quantitative indexes and the list of these communities. And thanks to the data, we managed to visualize this and help to develop this process. And the MP committee that was working together with the ministry and with the experts group on developing the indices. So the reduction in the population, the increased number of IDPs, and the budget expenses, and also the percentage of the destruction in the communities. And we identified three scenarios where we can have the corresponding data about the number of the communities, about the destruction, and this list is consistent with the draft registry. And the second scenario is the correspondence meeting at least one criteria, so either destruction or depopulation or lack of budget revenue. And the last scenario is when there are no criteria fulfilled. So there are a lot of interesting things that we can model thanks to these scenarios. We can discuss this and add this to the draft decisions that basically in future become the investment. It's not about the evaluating the targeted investment. It's about how happy the people are about the targeted investment. So here in the center, there is a person, but when it comes to the proper decision to make sure that it's gets down to the specific person. So we're providing this tool how we can do that. And again, I'd like to remind you that the publishing of the first version of the system will be done at the beginning of the summer this year because there are a lot of legal tool mechanism involved, and we're developing this according to the current legislation. It's very important for us to follow all the procedures. Of course, we will be in contact with the uh, regions and the communities as our key clients, and it's very important to get their feedback and take it into account when developing the system. Thank you very much for the participation, and I hope that with your support, uh, moral support, any other kind of support, we'll be able to improve this system to make sure that it's a useful tool, from any perspective. Thank you, Christina. And some of the questions, you just removed from the tip of my tongue, and I see that Remy wants to just applaud and thank Christina. I just wanted to take a couple of questions from the audience. Maybe you would like to ask some questions. So I have a number of questions about the international partners, about the official presentation, about the sensitive information for security reasons. But I'm sure that not all the questions have been answered. So I have Alexander is raising his hand. So let's take three questions to make sure that we follow the agenda, and then we'll continue with it. Okay, so one by one, and just let me just bring the mic to you. Hello, I'm Yevgenia Devyatova. I represent the Ministry of Health, and I have a couple of questions just along your presentation. They just came up. So you said that the access to this GIS will be given to the Ministry for uh, Regional Development, the Agency for Recovery. So the Ministry of Health also takes part in a lot of questions when it comes to the reconstruction of healthcare institutions. So are we going to have the access to this GIS? And the second question, uh, will there be access to some public part of the GIS, like the map? Will the citizens have access to this? So currently, I don't know whether you know this or not, but there is like a capable network of healthcare institutions, and it's part of the national portal of the geospace data. Is it going to be reflected here? And also, you're showing the local roads. So will a citizen have the possibility to see how, like with the help of this map, where is like the closest healthcare institution that they can go to and present to? So you're doing this for the citizens. It's very important. Evgenia, thank you. There is a very good answer to this question, but let me ask Christina just to hold on with the answer so that we hear all the questions. I'm sorry, but we just have to because of the agenda. Hello, thank you, Alexandra Novak. UN program. So this question is the following. So it's clear that the regional development, of course, is going to envisage the development of the municipalities and the development of the urban areas and rural areas. And international partners now are doing a lot, and they're helping with developing the Ukrainian agricultural sector. And there is a draft program of the agricultural register, which is successful and which also proved that it's capable in during these times. And it's a good example of digitalization and it's also the tool for the distribution of the international assistance. So I'm going to include some component for monitoring the international support on the community level, territorial level. Thank you very much, Alexandra. And yes, the floor is yours. I am Serhiy. I work in the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and I have a question. So if the database is filled with information about the damages that are accumulated in a certain place, so we'll take into account the information from the Ministry of Defense. because one of the areas of our initiatives is basically this kind of activity is just been initiated. And another sub-question, so wouldn't it happen that when analyzing two databases, the open one and not so open one, there will be possibility to identify some specific objects by, the third parties, where there were like, exact hits just to guide the missiles for the next attacks? Thank you. That's a very cool question. So we all understand that all of us together, yes, we are a target for the enemy, but that's a very professional, important question for the future. Thank you. So, Christina, over to you. Thank you for all the questions. So I believe all of them are professional, and we discuss them on a daily basis in the team. So when it comes to the medical data, so just for your understanding, we're absolutely open when it comes to the process of our work. So with the coordination of the ministry, we carried out a number of meetings, about a dozen meetings with the ministries, which are the owners of some industry-based systems. And we also had some meetings with the Ministry of Health representatives, and we started to talk about some initial data from the statistical system and the ministry databases and from the state of public health, basically just to identify what is our basically inquiry to the top management. And we started to work in this area. And if we are talking about the physical accessibility of, specific hospitals, so there's basically it's about developing the system further on, because we're starting very gradually, and because there's a lot to be done, and we're just taking it piece by piece. But when we talk about the GIS data without, specific coordinates of some institutes, so basically we can do that, and the functionality allows that. But the question is, like, where is the uniqueness of this specific data? If we're talking about, for example, some modeling in the future, right? So when we fill in the system with correct data about modeling or optimizing some service, for example, in the healthcare, like the accessibility, for example, to the closest health institutions. So we'll have to work with that, because this is a complicated task to identify a number of indicators with these capacities. And of course, the metadata, according to the legislation, this has to be done by everyone. And so what's important here is to ensure the uniqueness and the end purpose of our tool. So during these working meetings, we'll be able to get to something, where we agree, and our key beneficiary is the community. And for us, it's important just, on the community level, to provide them with the necessary data for decision making and to help them assess their own decisions. And if we cooperate with the regions and the communities, that there is, this level of indicators. So we're going just to promote this and agree this and do this. And we are absolutely open for that. And of course, we are planning this. And is there going to be the access for the system to other central authorities? So now we envisage this kind of access to with some initial functionalities of the central authorities. This is about filling in the data, and this format is absolutely acceptable, and we're following this. And if we ask the data from someone, some quantitative data, we also can show the interaction between those indicators. And this is only about the question of reflecting this in the relevant documents and providing access. And when it comes to the public version, you saw the public version of the system. There is the administrative version of the system, some of it, and of course, there, like according to the roles and rights, different people will have different capacities and also access to the information. So when it comes to the information about the agricultural sector, so I was said that we are planning to fill in the system with different layers of data. And again, we have a number of integrations envisaged, and there are about 40 integrations to come. And of course, with the key public registers. We're going to interact with them to receive the to make sure that the entries in these registries are turned into some indicator, just to show the people on the map, like some communities filled in with color, on the map, depending on what indicator we're showing. And if we are able to, use this information to calculate some indicators for the accessibility of, certain products, there's that will be just happy if this is possible. And again, we are in close interaction with the expert community and with the National Statistics Service of Ukraine and with the local self-governments. And yes, and there was one more question from the Ministry of Defense. And I will ask you, Roberta, from the statistics to get ready. Okay, and the last question. It's a little bit difficult just to keep all the three questions in track. Yes, I remember about the safety, the security. So we are totally aware that, there are certain sets of data that, according to our, common sense, we want to talk to some agencies and to agree what can be published when, for security reasons, what can't. And of course, there's very sensitive data about the list of hits on the infrastructure objects or the housing objects in Ukraine. And this information is closed by default and will be accessible only to those who fill in this data. So a public user on public part of the geo portal, he will not have access to this geo-coded information. This is closed information, and basically it's provided in shares to like the one who basically was adding this information, like the community fills in the data to the lists of damaged property to the registry, and where it was assessed by the commission, etc. So this initiative is from the local self-government, right? And the local self-government has the right to have access to this information that they basically added. So it's not like that everyone will have access to this, like just to compare all the layers of these hits during the missile strikes. And we take this very responsibly. And it's clear that there will be a number of sets of data that will not be geocoded and they will not be presented on the geo portal. So basically now we're focusing on just making sure that we collect the analytics, some quantitative data, and we're showing this. That's all. And as a moderator, I understood that the system is not for everyone, especially during the martial law. And this, I guess, is good rather than bad. So in the public information section, if it's going to so it's not going to inflict any damage. So we're falling behind the schedule and we need to move on. But I saw that Vasil Kubida was also raising the hand. So I have to give the floor to Vasil, of course, but that's the last question, I'm afraid. And then we can talk privately during the coffee break. Thank you. So Alexander Azarkin said that GIS was started about 15 and 17 years ago. In 2008, when the first meetings were taking place, we were planning to make sure that the system carries out at least three tasks. So the first task is the modeling of Ukraine's development as a socio-political system according to the tasks that the state has. The second task is planning. And the third is monitoring and evaluation of what had been planned. And since the state is a socio-political system that is in the state of competition with other systems, and sometimes this competition gets into the war, just the war that we're having right now. And so the task of the state is to take care of the security of this system, and it has to plan where everything is located connected with the defense. So in the Soviet Union, they believed that the West was the enemy. So where were the defense enterprises located? So they were in Donetsk and Luhansk, not in the west of Ukraine. So if now it's different, so we have to basically relocate those plants where Well, of course, we have to model this and answer these questions. So this is the function of the public planning, but that is not the national strategy of the regional development is the main one. It's only the main one for evaluating the development of the regions and the communities. But for the first one, we need to have the doctrine of the national development that Azarkin also said, back in Bucha, we were there when she was mentioning this. So my question is, so the architecture of this GIS, so does it envisage the development? Will it give the opportunity to do the modeling of the country's development, the socio-political system, and plan for this? Or are you going just to stop this just as a system for evaluating the development of the regions and the local communities?
Коротко відповідаю. По-перше,
I will respond very briefly. First of all, we have a basic functionality which is required by the existing legislation. When we say about the strategy as a basis, this is what law says us. We can discuss that, but this is, this is something which exists and we cannot change it as of now. What regards to the first version of the system, we will have to introduce digital documents, collect data from other register their visualization with maps, graphs, etc., and then monitoring on the basis of reports with providing specific indicators and checking indicators. To the second version of the system, we actually call it the donors to support development of the second version of the system. Who waves your hand? Yes, we're waiting for you, for your contribution to introduce the model. And this is my dream. I want to implement it, but this is a very complicated and issue, a bit econometric. Should you have any expert ideas how to disintegrate this process into components, we are ready to the discussion. Thank you, Christina. Thank you very much. We are very grateful to you for the presentation and for the answers to all the questions. It is clear once the system is going to have data in 3-5 years, we will come to modeling quite objectively. We will have the possibilities to do that. Thanks, Christina. And now I'd like to invite Igor Werner to the floor, the head of the State Statistics Service of Ukraine. Igor, over to you. I'm sorry, and sorry to all the speakers. We're a bit behind of our schedule already. Thank you all. I will try to be as brief as possible. I mean, like talking about statistics, to don't provide too many boring information. After Christina to discuss statistics, maybe it's already too much for today, but the system, as to the system, it's very good. The plans are good, the development is good, and modeling, we will have modeling, you will have everything there, but it will become possible only after we are going to have data, which is the crucial element. Data are people, technology, and political will. I will start from the political will. We have a strategy of regional development up to 2027. It has everything, and creation of the system as well. Thanks to all the team of the Ministry of Infrastructure who made it possible and who made this system possible. Now we have to take care of data. Data exist. We can take them from anyone. This is the simplest way, from the respondent. Let's call it like that. It could be a legal entity, a natural person. We have to take data from somewhere, or these data are already somewhere. State collected them or somebody else collected them. So we can take data from that source. Many questions which we had today, and Christina answered to them, they related to the utilization of data which are in hands of other public authorities. This system is an opportunity to utilize this data and to visualize them. So today we heard an example, there was an example on capacity of territorial communities and financial data could represent it. We can look at budgets, we can take data from for this from the Treasury Service, from other lower level budgetary units, spending units. Well, so it all comes to our wish to utilize data in decision making. But what indicators should we use for that? Indicators can be the one which are needed for territorial communities. Secondly, the indicators which are necessary to the administration body as Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Healthcare, and all others who participated in this event or was present here in this hall. Oh, they are all in need of the data. And then that all brings us to the list of indicators, which could be quite long. The question is how to preserve a balance or to find a balance between what we want to get and what we can receive from existing sources. And I mean here the public authorities which already collect the information, and what is the goal of collection of the information. So these are the key issues we should decide. This is a very ambitious task, and I'd like to give a very brief spoiler. I'd like to express my gratitude to the Ministry of Infrastructure. There is a project, the project on the development of statistics in territorial communities, led by the Ministry of Infrastructure and supported by Hoverla project and USA. They also support this project. So the main key task of this project is actually the establishment of the concept for the development of statistics in communities, and not only the concept, but in general to create a draft law on territorial community statistics or statistics in territorial communities. Why do I say about that? Well, state statistics bodies are in fact do not cover the interests of territorial communities, because at the level of territorial communities, how many enterprises do we have? One, two? State statistics bodies, they are fully integrated into the International Statistics Service, and we follow the principles of statistics bodies of the UN and the EU, and one of key principles here is the statistical confidentiality, which is now included into the law, Article 4 of the law on statistics in Ukraine. This is a direct implementation of the norms of the EU Code of Statistics. So the confidentiality of statistics, what does it say? That when the entity, a natural person or any subject provided the statistics to the statistics body, we have no right to disclose this person to anyone, to competent bodies, to law enforcement bodies, to anyone on any grounds. The only reason is the court decision. This is the only reason when we can disclose the person who provided the statistics. So this confidentiality principle doesn't allow us to publish data on statistics at the level of territorial communities, because you know that territorial communities, even now after the reform, they became capacitated, they received capacity, they received an opportunity to develop independently, and they usually were created around some legal entities, enterprises, some factories, etc., to have a budget, to have funds for survival, for the development. So ensuring the confidentiality principle, we provide only 20 white indicator. This is to low. This is not enough to cover the needs of territorial communities. Another issue, issue number two, a lot of state statistical observations are not comprehensive. They have a selective nature. We only survey number of some specific number of entities and subjects, and we have to ensure a representative nature of our observations, and that allows us to use it as a basis for everyone. So we do not organize a thorough, a comprehensive observations. Then we have a question. So when the community is quite small or an average, then the sample may cover or may not cover any of the enterprises. How then, at the level of territorial community, it is we can get a representative sample. This is a second factor which does not allow the official statistics to publish the information at such low level. What will be the solution? The solution should be the following. We have to take the statistics of territorial communities out from the official statistics and to regulate that at the legislative level and to regulate all the issues on the rights and collection of the information, on access to this information, and to with the obligation to maintain specific information systems. And thanks to that project, which I already mentioned, thanks to Ministry of Infrastructure for the initiative in this project, I hope that I really do have hopes that this project will be successful and we will receive the draft law, including all these issues. But there are still some issues which can be answered even now. First of all, the territorial community and the level of territorial community. How many computers should be there in order to maintain that number of information systems which exist today? I think about the territorial community of the future like spacecraft where there are a lot of monitors and a person should include the information into one, second, third information system, etc. So it's clear that maybe I'm a bit exaggerating, but here we have to understand that the problem looks quite serious. How many information systems should be maintained to get the information from the territorial community? If the territorial community will collect the information and provide it somewhere, how many information systems should we have? And actually, the possibility of a creation of an information system with the large functionality actually provides us the answer because we can integrate it with other systems. I look at this system as like at one of the most priority ones for the communities to work with it. But again, we have the registers of territorial communities. They have provided information to that register. It will cover the information on the population because it's not possible to avoid that. And of course, there will be an integration with the information system of the migration service of Ukraine and respective databases which are necessary for that. But we have to understand that the state migration service is now maintains the registers of local communities, but actually communities provide information to it, and maybe we should think about optimizing the interface. But in any case, there is an issue of optimization of information system. We have to understand that there are not too many people in territorial communities to maintain such systems. There are not too much to many such people. And I'm now talking about Lviv Oblast, and in Lviv Oblast we will have a problem with human capacity to maintain this system. So we have to understand what will be the system, how many people we would need, what would be the list of indicators, and where the information will be taken from. I hope that we are going to get answers to all these questions at the end of the projects I already mentioned, and we will receive the concept of the development of territorial community statistics, which will then be articulated in the draft law, which then will be publicly discussed and will be finally updated. Thank you, Yuri. Even what you've mentioned, 21 indicator, which the system already provides, it is already very helpful for many people working in local communities. It is already an ensured interaction between your ministry and communities. It is already very helpful, even without all these works you've already mentioned. Yes, I'd like to mention that again. I hope that this system will be used, well, an open data portal, Data UA, State Statistics Service, publishes financial reporting of the enterprises for the second year already, and it should be opened according to the legislation. It is also a very good driver for the development of this system, I believe, which also could be used because financial reporting contains a lot of indicators which are of utmost importance for the and interest for local communities. Thank you very much, Ihor Werner from State Statistics Service of Ukraine. Thank you very much. And we invite you to the hall. And now we are going to listen to the experience from foreign colleagues. I would like to invite Donat Maggiari, the international expert from ULEAD with Europe. She will be online and she will present the international experience from the EU countries.
Greetings from my side. Hope you can clearly hear me. Please confirm that everything is okay.
Well, it's very interesting for me to listen to the experience.
Thank you. So once again,
ми маємо трошки менше часу, ніж планували.
We have less time than expected, but over to you, please, run your presentation.
No problem. First of all, let me express my appreciation about the presented GIS system. It's evident to me that you will use it as a key tool of your regional policy. And now, in this very brief period of time, I will give you some EU accession, the EU perspective about that. I'm asking the organizers, should I share my screen so you can see the presentation?
Так, звичайно, будь ласка.
Yes, of course, please do share the screen.
Okay, I'm doing it in a minute. Put it in a presentation mode, so hopefully you can see the full picture. Again, please confirm that you see the full picture here.
Ми бачимо так.
Yes, with is a presentation, but not full screen.
Not full screen. Okay, and we do this again. We put it in full screen mode so you can properly see. You don't need to see the notes. This time it should work. So, previously when one heard about monitoring and evaluation, it was regarded as a very technical issue and not really important in the big game. And I must say that by now, by this EU programming period, it has significantly changed. Previously, monitoring was treated as an IT system, a simple IT system issue, and evaluation was approached as something for the researchers and for the academia. But by now it has changed. The European Union is treating monitoring and evaluation as a key tool for distributing the EU funds. And I think that's the reason that I got this request to speak about it. Let's see what I have to show to you. First of all, I'm sorry, a little context to you. why is it a key element in preparation of the European Union accession, and especially preparing the regional policy field to be accession ready? You can see three reference documents here. The first one is the European Commission's Ukraine report, where you can see that that it's mentioned that monitoring should be there and treated in a systematic way. And this expression, systematic, will come back in several phases, because actually monitoring means a systematic observation, if you like. So this is very important that we should treat it as a systematic tool. The second document I'm referring here is the action plan prepared by the government of Ukraine. And again, we see that for this particular action which I listed, one is about the geographic information system. However, in my view, this is a building block of a whole monitoring and evaluation system, not the system in itself, but I will explain this later. And thirdly, on behalf of ULEAD, I'm able to be here. You need to see that ULEAD is contributing in all these preparation works, and that's why I got the chance to speak here. So going forward, for some inspiration, I'm sorry about this system. Going forward, so for some inspiration, you can see here a map of the monitoring systems within Europe. And here you can see a new expression called e-cohesion. And I will come back to that for the sake of understanding. Right now, I will use this expression as a monitoring tool for distributing the European Union funding. And you know, when we are creating a new system, we are always turning to see some inspirations, some good practices. And here I took a look on the European landscape, and basically you can see that in the overwhelming majority, the member states have a one single unified system. And I will explain just one system. If we are talking about monitoring and monitoring and cohesion policy, we need to see that it's not a simple matter. There were difficulties in the member states implementing proper systems. Those systems were developed over the period of time, from one programming period to the next programming period. So this is not just a one-time action. And if I was not mistaken, I heard that even your GIS system was built over a long period of time. Another topic is evaluation, which is about assessing the impact of the programs. And again, I would highlight only one expression from this slide, namely the evaluation culture, which is very important when designing policy interventions, when designing development programs, when designing project facilities. It's important to take into account the lessons learned from the previous period. And the last point is about indicators. And we heard in the previous interventions that you know, it's still an open question what kind of indicators the system should use, and I will reflect on that. So I'm going to the next slide, and here I will not read the text. I will focus only on the figure here, that it's part of a program cycle. Monitoring is part of a program cycle, and obviously it enables reflection on what's really going on. And here the key expression is result-based management, and I'm very much aware of the fact that in your country it's a crucial thing to have significant results as soon as possible, and evidence-based decision-making is something which is in the forefront of government decisions. and monitoring is a tool for that evidence-based decision making. Going forward, here I compared some elements with the previous programming period. I will not go into the details. If there's interest, of course, I'm very happy to answer any kind of questions. Only thing I highlight from here is the so-called performance framework, which consists of certain result indicators and very specific objectives and milestones. And here is the answer to the question, what kind of indicators should be used for this new programming period, and of course, for the next one after 2027, which, hopefully Ukraine will join as full member. The Commission is very much defining in advance and setting the output and result indicators, a set of indicators, and during the negotiations with the European Commission, the member states should agree on what kind of indicators they will use for the specific programs, what milestones should be achieved. And this got an extra emphasis after the COVID pandemic, when the member states were setting up their resiliency plans, which meant additional extra funding. And in those plans, the European Commission introduced this methodology, and they will go ahead with this type of management of the funds. So the indicators will not be just technical data, but really a tool which will drive policy making. Again, the good news for Ukraine is that for this programming period, already the monitoring and evaluation processes are somewhat lighter and streamlined. And of course, as digital technology is developing, there are new possibilities. For example, real-time reporting of the data instead of very late annual reports. And there's nowadays an open data platform, which I will show after the end of my presentation. Here, my message is that this is already a very well-developed EU system, which needs to be adapted to your country. But this is really a good news that it went through already several development cycles. So what you will face is a much more user-friendly system. I'm always asked about very concrete examples. Donat, give us some best practice. I put here a good practice, because in monitoring and evaluation, you cannot say that something is the best. It varies case by case, program by program, country by country, but there are good practices. And I took as an example the Portuguese system. And here you can see with the green boxes on the left-hand side that the monitoring system of the European Union funds is part of a bigger national monitoring system. So this is one of the key messages here. Another thing is that this monitoring system is used by several types of users. You can see on the right-hand side the main type of users, starting from the applicants, from the beneficiaries, ending up with the audit authorities. And for each type of users, you need to provide different functionalities. And here in this Portuguese system, this is very well defined. Another key point which I would like to highlight here is that the applicants are using this monitoring system for applying for funding and managing the received funds. So this is also a tool of management, which really explains the concept of e-cohesion. So it's not simply a monitoring tool, but also a management tool. If we are talking about monitoring and evaluation, we need to talk about the capacity and the capacity building efforts. It's not evident that you introduce such systems, and it's not enough if you just give access to the relevant users and give the necessary authorization. there should be reallocation of certain resources. You need to reduce the administrative complexity behind the programs, which are reflected in the monitoring system. So without simplification, it would be very difficult to properly monitor those processes. And of course, capacity building is there, even in relation to monitoring and evaluation. But this capacity building is part of a bigger capacity building effort of building capacity for the coordination. Of course, there are several tools to create the capacity. There should be a guidance program for the program management authorities and explanation to them. I brought here a Dutch example from the Netherlands that, internally they need to reallocate their resources. Of course, several training courses should be there. And as I mentioned previously, this is part of a bigger effort of creating a proper coordination. I think I have still a couple of more minutes, so I will show you the concept of e-cohesion. Again, I'm not reading this, I'm just demonstrating this, that this is a part of the European Union legislation, which are through regulations, so there should not be any national legislation. It can be applied directly in the member states. And again, the message here is that the monitoring system is usually part of a broader management information system of the different programs. Also, I heard about in the previous presentations, and even there was probably a question from the audience about security. And I imagined that this would be one of the topics. So here I selected a couple of good practices again about securities, but security has several dimensions, and it also needs to be managed here. We heard about authentication, but also using e-signatures and using the EU standards in that regard. I think it's something important. Again, here you can see very concrete names already existing EU systems where you can get inspiration from. Of course, inscription, data checks, and audit trails are also critical to ensure full security of those systems. So you need to be very careful how you to design this. But there are practices, there are building blocks which can be applied, so you do not have to start this from scratch. And finally, I'm showing to you the EU-wide cohesion open data platform. All the monitoring systems in the European member states are linked to this open data platform. This is a kind of obligation, and it will be an obligation for Ukraine as well. And then I give the online access to that platform, and you can really see how in Europe the programs are progressing. I'm not saying it's real time, but it's pretty up to date, which is it's excellent news. And again, this little screenshot demonstrates the need for data visualization, because at the end of the day, you need to also explain to the taxpayers where the money is going. So these type of tools are helping in that regard. I think I used up my 15 minutes of time. So let me express 3 key messages here. One of the messages that the monitoring system is not simply just a digital tool. It's part of a massive coordination effort. The second message here is that capacity needs to be built around the monitoring and evaluation systems. So effort should go into that direction, and we are here to help in that regard. And thirdly, when you are designing either a GIS system or monitoring system, please think about the end user who will use on a daily basis such systems. It's also important that the platform which the user is meeting the management of EU funds should be something which is understandable for the end user. Thank you very much for the time and for the patience. Sorry for the technical glitches, and I'm here to help any kind of question.
Дякуємо, пане Донат. Ми бачили, що в чаті...
Thank you, Mr. Donat. And I saw that in the chats there were, thank you notes directed at you. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we cannot provide time for Q&As, but we heard your main messages, especially what you emphasized in the end. So thank you once again. Thank you for joining us. And I hope that we will be able to have a look at the presentation when you send it to us in a more detailed way. And now I'd like to give the word to Tanya Sanford-Aman, the Director of Alenia International TD and the Search Project Director. So they say that I said something wrong with the name of this project, but it's a search. It's search. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much, Sasha. And I like you very much, but I'm going to sit down at the end here so that we have this screen a little bit free. I realize all the speakers have started to move down from you.
У кожного було своє крісло.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for the welcome this afternoon, and thank you for including us in the program. I would say, first of all, congratulations, Christina and team, on the progress you've made so far. I think it's really, really impressive. The data that you are working on, the visualization, it's really an impressive feat. And it's something that we know a little bit about in Search. So I can say, truly from the heart, we know how much work it is, and it's an impressive result so far. And we wish you all the best in continuing. I'm supposed to speak this afternoon about the architecture of planning, the integration of the GEIS system with the evolving architecture of planning. But since the architecture of planning is indeed something that is evolving, I'm not going to give you, obviously, a very clear-cut answer on how these things integrate. But I would like to talk about, let's say, the framework of planning. What are some of the principles behind it? Because we have not only been working on the SURGE project, on the architecture of planning at the regional level, but we have also been working at the national level for about 8 years. So when I say I understand what Christina is going through, we have been working in this area for 8 years on national strategic planning, and specifically on development of policy at the national level. And we also have developed an IT tool that some of you may have heard about. I know some of you have been in trainings with the SURGE project before. I see some of you here. It's called Project UA, which also has an experimental approval. I think we have a Postanova. I get mixed up with my Duruchinas and the Postanovas, but it is approved and it is being used by a number of ministries right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Project UA today, but in terms of what we have learned along the way in looking at policy development and policy implementation. Наступний slide, будь ласка. Oh God, okay. That means I have to do 2 things at once. See, okay, there we go. But I want to take us back to the issue that we are trying to solve. And Christina talked about this a little bit earlier, about the plethora of plans we have in Ukraine. But I think it does help, like everything, to visualize a little bit what we are dealing with. And of course, we have a large number of plans at the national level, Ukrainian strategic documents documents, CAB-MIN programs, strategies, concepts. You will notice when we get to the regional level that we haven't even tried to count. We think this is the appropriate symbol when you understand that territorial communities have 10 options for plans at the moment. And again, this is the planning system that we are looking at collaboratively now and trying to streamline, align with EU processes. But it's a lot of plans that need to be created, need to be monitored, need to be implemented, and they should be aligned with Ukraine's international commitments. And at the moment, these two processes are completely siloed, which of course is problematic for a number of reasons. It's problematic, first of all, because you don't have the alignment of content, but it's an immense workload for the civil service, but you're not also going to have coherency in the plans. And so when you look at this, you see an immense amount of data, and I think that absolutely the GIS system is on the right track. Ukraine is on the right track with digitalization. That's what you do when you have an immense amount of data that you want to ensure is cohesive. But I'd also like to talk, I shouldn't be in charge of this. But in terms of the planning process, it is not just about digitization. We also have to, oh, thank you, Sasha. Thank you. We also have to look at the processes behind the digital product, because you can still do digitization in a very bad way. You can still have somebody sitting in an office entering data by himself or herself, and it's not a collaborative process. It's not a process that speaks to the needs of territorial communities, for example. So I think it's important for us to look at some of the principles that need to back up the system, that need to be part of the back office behind the IT product that you have, but also the processes that you have to integrate as you are undertaking the planning process. And so first of all, I would say that what we are trying to do is achieve coherency between the plans and the strategies, both domestically. I mean, that is a challenge in and of itself. We worked on NATO AMP for a number of years and understood that that's a completely siloed process from, let's say, developing the CAB-MIN program, which is also something we worked on. But then you have to align it with international commitments. What about SDGs, EU accession? All of these things in terms of alignment, it would be much better if we had a system that could somehow handle the coherency issue here. Second, we need to be talking about how we do the planning, because the plan is only as good as the process that is around the development of it. In terms of decentralization, territorial communities should own their plans, but it's deeper than that. It shouldn't be just developed by local government. We need to ensure that the plans have the voices of everyone in the community. And I was thinking, as the previous speaker was talking about indicators, one thing we have to think about as well is that if you don't have the data at the table, if you don't track certain things, it can actually drive policy inadvertently. And one of the issues that we've come across in recent years, for example, is the issue of inclusive education. So we all know how many school children, well, I'm not going to say we know how many school children are exactly where in the country and of what ages. I mean, that is very high level data we should have, but we should also understand how many children have special needs, how many children require inclusive education. And what I've seen in this area is that although Ukraine has a really good legislative base in terms of inclusive education, every child should have it, nobody knows how many children need it. And the rule is that you have to ask for it as a parent. The burden is on parents to ask for special education for their child who needs it. At this point, we should understand that there's going to be a certain number of children in every community that are going to need special education, inclusive education, and plan for it. So this is a case where you have, let's say, an indicator or a lack of data actually driving policy. It should be transparent. I won't say much more about that, except that it needs to be transparent in terms of inputs into the planning. But it also, pieces of this should be transparent to the community so they can see what the implementation looks like. It should be comprehensive. Too many plans stop at the high level vision and we don't see a realistic action plan. And so we need tools that give us real project management tools in our hands that we're able to look at what the timelines look like. We're able to resource these things in terms of human resources and financial resources, and to budget. And finally, we need to use a standardized language. I mean, if we are developing an IT tool, we all know that there has to be a standardized language in the IT tool, but it's same with planning. And I'm thankful to the previous speaker who mentioned results-based management. That is the language that we use in our IT tool. We chose that for a number of reasons, but one of them is that it is used widely around the world, including in the EU. But second, it's a simple language, but not simplistic. It allows you to focus on what your end goal is, not what your process is. So much like you want to drive somewhere versus I am going to drive to Lviv today. So it gives you a direction of where you are going, and it allows you then to account for the resources you need. A full tank of gas, some money for snacks, a hot dog at the Vogue station. These are the things you need to get to where you need to be. So I'm going to give you a crash course on results-based management if you haven't seen this before. So in terms of a common language, I also like to think about it as a scaffold, let's say in construction, where we have a bunch of bricks. We have tons and tons of plans and strategies and concepts and maybe indicators, but we need to organize them on a platform where we can see the logic of how we get from one point to the other point. And I've taken the example today of human capital development. And you can see, I think it's the first 5 levels that are here. We worked a long time on this architecture. These first 5 levels are all about policy. These are policies that tend to be determined at the national level. And if we're looking at human capital development, there's a number of policy spheres that we could have. For lack of space, we only have healthcare, culture, social policy here. We could add here economic growth, livelihoods, jobs, everything that you would need to develop human capital. For the sake of this example today, I'm going to go through this quickly. I'm going to use healthcare. And in terms of healthcare, we have medical services, we have public health, we have medicines and medical equipment. And in our process, we have taken that from the mandate of the ministry and how they themselves have organized their work. We go down to the policy component, and we have under medical services, we would have emergency care, primary care, secondary care, etc. And again, we can go down to the next level and we say, well, what we really want to focus on is making sure that we have good emergency care in the country that is accessible to everybody, for example. And that's where it gets really interesting, because we move out of the policy ideas, we move out of the vision of what we want to achieve, but we start to think about what the exact steps are. So just as an example here, we would have, let's say, that Ukrainians at the policy initiative level, that we have new international protocols so that all of the emergency rooms in departments in the country are well equipped, and everyone is treated according to international protocols. We have a dispatch system that makes sure people get to hospital in a timely way. We have trained professionals that are in the ambulances. There's lots of things you could do there, but maybe those are the major components we would look at. And you keep going and you realize that you can break this down into smaller and smaller pieces that are really easy to action and manage in a project management way. So at the end of the day, you could see, for example, how identifying capacity gaps in emergency standards relates to, at the very top, the development of human capital. And that's where this is a very interesting methodology, is when you're working on these pieces, you know exactly how you are going to achieve that final goal. In our system, and I'm just giving you slides today, worried about of going into it live, but our system is organized in this way. Again, It could be organized in any way. This is the landing page in human capital development. Sasha, we're going to go quickly through here. If we were clicking on it, we would click on healthcare, and we go to the next slide. And we would come out to all of those pieces that we just mentioned a few minutes ago. No, okay. You can go to the previous one. Yeah. No, up. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So we would have all of the components that we mentioned before that are policy components. They become menus in the system, and so those probably will stay there for quite a long time. And then we go down further to the next one. And this is where we start to have the project management tools. We can then say, we can start looking at things like establishing a call center, and we can put timelines along it. We can assign responsibilities for it. Next one. We can start then also to not only just measure the progress towards implementing this particular project, but once it is established, we can then look at the impact of the system. How good is it working? In this case, the example is, what is the number of positive outcomes for emergency cases each year in each region? The number of calls, or the percentage of calls that were dispatched within 120 seconds. So the system can then migrate over into evaluating the progress or the impact of whatever it is that you are creating. We can do costing and resourcing. At this time, it's very important that you can also include technical assistance projects. You could include loans. I think this could be quite interesting for territorial communities. We can look at commitments. Again, what are the international commitments that Ukraine has? We can tag them here according to each one of the actions. And as they are done, that relates up to progress towards SDG 3 in this case, that could then be printed off as a report. Legal track, but we'll continue the next one, Sasha. I won't show you everything that we can do. We can visualize progress as we want. And I just want to come back to the original results architecture that I mentioned at the very beginning. So this is an example of the tool that we have developed at the policy level, which I see to be quite different than the GEIS system, which is working at the regional level right now. And I think, as the previous speaker discussed, there is a question of how many systems you can use, but I think in a decentralized environment, it is very useful to have more than one system, as long as that they can speak to each other. And events like today, I think, are incredibly important for that. I think when we look at what we are doing in Project UA, the policy that we have defined goes down to about the policy initiative level. And this is really the mandate of the national ministries. And where I imagine the GEIS system really will become quite useful is at the implementation stage, which of course takes place in the regions, which takes place in every community across Ukraine. And here I can see that we have both a bottom-up system and a top-down system that together could really paint an interesting picture that helps to drive policy decisions based on data that is collected in the regions and is informative. So thank you very much for your attention. Christina, again, thank you for having us here today. And I think it's something that we can look forward to figuring out how we can collaborate more on this together.
Дякую, Таня.
Thank you very much. I think it's all clear. Actually, the question of implementation of and realization of all these strategies is at the table. And when all the communities will have strategies, this issue will be only more relevant, and that also should be made through different measures and their measurement. Thank you very much, Tanya Sanfotamar. And now I would like to ask Tanya to stay with us for the discussion, and I'd like to invite the representatives of local self-governing authorities to share their thoughts on the system and what we have started to discuss already. And I'd like to invite Grigory Borsh, the expert from Association of Amalgamated Territorial Communities, Diana Kolomitseva or Ivan Slobodyanek, should represent all Ukrainian Association of Communities, Yaroslav Rabashuk, or Yaroslav, are you with us? Or Tetiana Melnik from Association of Ukrainian Cities, and also Oleg Timoshuk from Ukrainian Association of Rayon and Oblast Councils.
Пане Григорій, ви не переживайте, ви присаджуйтесь.
Grigori, please take a seat. Even we'll have discussion only with you, we will still have a discussion. I'm sure about that. Maybe part of associations are in Zoom. I kindly ask organizers to check where the representatives of the associations. I know that the All Ukrainian Association of Communities is starting right now this debates on the draft law on regional administrations, and I will start from Grigori. Grigori, can you tell us, please? From the very beginning, you actually saw the presentation. You'll be present from the very beginning of the event, so you have the opinion of association. I have the following question to you. Such system, can it help the communities, or will it make their life even harder? Thank you very much. That's a very good question. Let's start from the very beginning. First of all, in the framework of coordination or clarification of the information which allow us to digitalize the strategies in different registers. I'm sorry. I like to clarify. In agenda, we are indicated as an association of amalgamated territorial communities. We are all Ukrainian Association of Amalgamated Territorial Communities. We represent and protect interests of all amalgamated territorial communities of Ukraine. At the same time, 850 of them have delegated this right to us officially. So for me personally, it's quite an overwhelming moment because I will speak on behalf of so many amalgamated territorial communities. Today's speakers have mentioned that geoinformation systems issue is being discussed for quite a long time, and we have no grounds to have any doubts in technologies and achievements which prove to be efficient in the EU and other parts of the world, that they can be the barrier for the development of our communities. It is so nice to see that we are now in the context, and in some dimensions we are even forerunners of such processes. So let me not to dwell deeper into the achievements. I'd like to congratulate Christina Zelinska and her wonderful team with their real achievement. I'd like to congratulate Dream Project because they are another pearl of the achievements of ours. Let me ask a few and raise actually a few questions which are actually of very much interest of the communities. Yes, the overall project which was presented today and the strategies which were presented and discussed today, they cover regional and all Ukrainian perspectives, and the community level is the next step. So it would be have the interests of communities taken into account, so the territorial communities are eager to have a share of interests in sharing the information and providing the information into the databases. I know that Hive concept is used to collect the information and to provide information to databases. And for us, it is important to understand who actually will have a burden of costs for that, and where we are going to, at what place or at what stage we are going to get any benefit of that, because there should be material provision, there should be computers, there should be some equipment, not only the computers, but the people as well, trained people. Somebody has to train them how to use the system. All that requires resources.
Громад на сьогодні вже мають працюючі геоінформаційні системи.
Number of
A number of communities have operative GIS, and there are communities that are very happy in using these systems. So what we need to understand is the interaction between the system presented today and the systems in the communities that are available now. So how is this going to happen? So do they need to get rid of those, or will they be integrated? You know, what's happening with that? And another thing that I'd like to appeal to, and the experts also were mentioning this, I would like to appeal to understand that GIS is not only about monitoring and evaluation, it's about planning, and it's also about backing up the government decisions, management decisions. And this is where the community interest may be in, not only just a beautiful visualization, not the comparison of some information, but just the understanding, like what kind of investor is needed in my community, which industries are to be developed here, how to work in the social area, what to implement, what to develop. So these are the answers that basically, these are the questions, these are the decisions that the proper GIS needs to give the basis for. Apart from security, like we have competent authorities who are responsible for that, but let me pay attention to two points. So the first one, the question of sensitive data is not an easy one, because the experience of big data says that you can obtain sensitive information when processing a large amount of open data. And again, here, if there are some additional leverages or some additional checks to ensure the security. So it would be great, if they're in place, because a great number of information, any kind of open or closed information is collected in one place. So it's a certain kind of risk. And we know today that even like the tech giants, they are not 100% insured from some setbacks in this area. So overall, I'm sorry, you made a pause and I thought that you were about to finish. So overall, Ukraine has to finish this war stronger, and the technical, social, environmental conditions for that, the humanitarian ones, any kind of conditions, have to favor that. So we see that the GIS are the tool that facilitates the attainment of this goal. We are open to cooperation and will be happy if we are involved and we get more detailed information. We are ready to have a meeting with our association, with the board of our association, just to speculate how we can be useful to make sure that every community feels how valuable this is. And thank you for this very useful work. Thank you, Rehori. Please stay with us. I give the floor to Yaroslav Ryabushu, the Association of Ukrainian Cities. Yaroslav, I see that you hear us. So can you speak now? Yes? Okay, go ahead. We can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. How about now? So now I was allowed to open the mic. Can you hear me well? Yes, Yaroslav, the floor is yours. Right, so thank you for the invitation. And of course, it's only a presentation. We don't see what's inside and what's inside the GIS when we don't have access to that. So basically, we'll be looking at this during the practice. On the go, we'll be just looking at all the pros and cons. And I would like to say that the association should also have access to the GIS because the association represents the self-government on the central level, and this is to make sure that the associations have the tool to back up like where they're standing when it comes to protecting the local self-government, but also to back up the management decisions on the public, on the national level. That's one thing. Second thing is the local self-governments that will be filling in this database, this GIS. So basically, they're expecting some movement, like some cooperation on part of the ministries, and it would be nice to see in this GIS some tools that the ministries would use when allocating the national funding, subventions, donations, to make sure that every community can see where, the share of the national budget allocated to the local budget and also the criteria how this money is being allocated. So this will help to evaluate not only the transparency and integrity of the central government, also to plan our activities for the future and see like the criteria why these subventions or donations are being done to plan, for the next year or next 5 years, to have some sort of a vision if, the community can be expecting this from the central government. So thank you for your attention, and I hope that the GIS system will be useful for everyone. Thank you, Yaroslav. So what comes to my mind is one public discussion with you where I have to admit you were right about when you were saying that some data on the self-government level that we want to use for the development of planning of certain communities. So they contain sensitive data, not only when it comes to security, but also they're sensitive when it comes to the privacy, and they need to protect private data and private information. And basically, this is also one of the challenges that we are faced with. And we had a discussion about that. And I said that basically I would give you feedback. So now I'm saying that you are right, and we have to focus on protecting this data on the settlement levels, on the community level. That's another challenge because that's an EU directive that's basically we have to comply with. I also see that, yes, I can pass the floor to the Ukrainian Association of Communities. Yaroslav, please stay with us and please get involved into the discussion. And now I give the floor, and please also unmute your mic. Oleg, you can do it now. Now you're authorized to unmute.
Так, вітаю. Чути мене?
Так, Олеже, чути.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, we can. Good afternoon. This is the Association of the Regional Councils, not the communities, but we are happy to be part of this discussion. So geoinformation systems is not something new for us, and our association had experience of using these systems during the pilot project of modeling the administrative changes in changing the boundaries of the raions. And back in 2018, we were developing together with Ministry for Regions the geosystems technologies, and basically we are very positive about it. And I see that Madam President is also here, and if she would like to add something, she can, I hope. And the most important requirement for us is to make sure that these technologies not only contain information, but give the possibility not only for analysis, but also for forecasting, because this is critically important. And I fully back all my colleagues from other associations in this. Maybe I am mistaken, but I saw that in the decree, which is now in effect, it has to be funded by the international technical assistance. So basically, if it's not some expenditure from the local budget, it's a huge benefit for all the local governments when it comes to the staff and the training. So the privacy protection is one of the most challenging issues in local self-government, and also we don't keep a very good record of the personal data, but if it's not only personal but sensitive data, so the question of all this cloud storage and who is responsible for that, who's going to be tracing the collection and processing and sending such data, that's another open question. So technically, I think it won't be difficult to implement all that, but whether all the decrees are complied with, is including like the international acts that were ratified by Ukraine when it comes to access to information, protection of information, whether it's public, whether it's not public. If it's not public, then whether it doesn't contradict the convention, Prom's convention about access to the public data. So basically, this kind of synchronization of all these geoinformation data and also working with this data by the local governments, self-governments, it's a very complicated issue, and the association will be happy to work on this on all the levels. And basically, we're ready to work, this both externally, internally, through the board, through the GIS, through all the management bodies. So we'll be happy to see all the initiatives that simplify the life of these local governments. That's obvious. And if it's not an expenditure for the local budgets, it's just wonderful. So security is number one, and also the possibility to use these tools for forecasting. And also, I'm concerned here with the artificial intelligence issues, so whether it's going to be added as a mechanism, because that's again another innovation that everyone is using, and maybe it will play some positive role in this story. So thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Oleg, thank you very much. And I saw that the president of the association was also here with us. Tatiana, if you would like to turn on your mic and take the floor, you can do that. If you are with us. All right, so Oleg, Tatiana saw that you took the floor from the association, and I believe that it's quite obvious that the situation on the level of the regions is much better than on the community level, because a huge number of indicators and data through this sampling that the chair of the State Statistics Service was mentioning. So it's present on the regional level, but it's not present on the community level. But just like the communities, you share, all the pain that the communities are faced with, because you have the districts, the raions, the new raions and the new administrative division. Basically, they have the same kind of pain and the same lack of opportunity to see and compare with the same indicators. So that's another example of all the four associations jointly understand all the pain and all the challenges that we're faced with. And I see that Rehori also, yes, he agrees with this conclusion. Thank you very much. And now we have just a couple of minutes for drawing the conclusions for the whole event and for the presentations and for this panel discussion. And I saw on the screen that there were other experts, and I know them very well, but I don't have any information, neither in the agenda nor basically I'm also checking my phone if anyone would like to take the floor. But I saw, yes, some hands raised. So if some of the experts would like to ask the questions, so please keep track of the timeline. We have to finish our discussion in, just the next 5 minutes. So if, just out of respect, like to the 300 participants that are listening to us online, and out of respect to those who are present here, and we have up to 100 participants who were here with us. So 100, despite the 4 air raid alarms since the start of the day. So they were present physically here with us. So Oleg, Yaroslav, Grigori, if you have some final remarks, please go ahead. If not, I'll just be drawing the conclusions. Thank you. I saw it. Okay, so please, so you can wait for the opportunity to familiarize with the system. When you get the access, there will be individual meetings with each of the associations about the possibility of working with the system. That's a very sound question that the associations need to have not some kind of clandestine but open access to the system. So if the chair of the session has access, then all the association has this access. But of course, that's basically you need to have the official access to using this, at least, this comparative panel that helps you to compare the communities and the indicators. Thank you, Grigori. Thank you, Yaroslav. Thank you, Oleg, for taking part in the final part of our event about the cooperation with the local governments. So I would like to thank everyone who is present here, everyone who was listening to us online, to those who were listening to us here, and to those who were asking the questions, who were taking part as the speakers. And also I would like to thank the Ministry for Recovery, the European Anti-Corruption Initiative, the European Union, and the delegation of the EU for making this event possible. Thank you for our technical team. I'd like to thank Christina Zalinska and her team who was preparing the materials. And I would like to invite all the speakers to send the presentation to the organizers so that the PPT PowerPoints could be sent to all the participants who were registered. So I would like to invite you to networking. And I guess everyone is really looking forward to the opportunity where we can just access the internet and, just using our hands, just to try it out and check the pilot version of the system. So I hope that this happens as soon as possible. And also the anime is basically just dies out of envy that during this difficult time we continue to develop digital Ukraine.